I'm Billy Hollowell. Welcome to the Inside Story. Today we are breaking down the drama unfolding at Wheaton College, and I'm joined by Jon Brown from the Christian Post. Jon, how you doing today?
I'm good, Billy. Thanks.
All right, so we want to dive into this story because there's so many different elements to it. Before we get into the drama and the issues unfolding around Wheaton, for those who don't know about Wheaton College, what can you tell us about the life and the culture of Wheaton?
Yeah, so Wheaton is a historic evangelical college. It was founded 1860 by some abolitionists. It's about 25 miles west of Chicago, but it's become famous in recent generations for producing some of the biggest names in evangelical Christianity that we know. Billy Graham went there. Jim Elliot went there, the famous martyr. Todd Beamer, another martyr, 9/11, Flight 93. William Lane Craig, John Piper. Just there's a long list of very prominent, notable alumni who have had a big impact in the Christian world. But it's also known as the Harvard of evangelicals. So it's considered to be very academically rigorous, but they maintain that they like to keep Christ at the core of their curriculum. So they make their staff sign a statement of faith. They make their students sign a covenant, and they say that they're preparing students for kingdom service.
So, okay, this is obviously, as you broke down, it's an important institution to evangelicals, to Christians more broadly. Now, there have been concerns about a lot of different Christian organizations, institutions, colleges in recent years. Obviously, the debate over wokeness and what that even means, and whether it's at some of these institutions, the debate about drifting theologically, these are things that often come up. Now, Wheaton is in the headlines, and you've been covering this because the school recently posted and then removed a Facebook post that was really congratulating one of its former students. And I'll let you explain who that former student is and what exactly happened. But give us a little bit of context on the first posting of the congrats and then the removal.
Right. So Russell Vogt, who was confirmed earlier this month as to head the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, he was a graduate of Wheaton in 1998. Um, he's been a public servant for many years. Uh, there's concerns from people on the left because he was involved with the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 project. So he's being accused of Christian nationalism and so on, and the typical accusations that people get. But Wheaton made a post congratulating him and urging prayer for him, and they didn't make a political statement. That they just simply congratulated an alumnus who is now in the White House. They put that on Facebook, and then some liberal alumni in the comments section complained, and they ultimately took the post down and they issued an apology. They said they
Yeah.
didn't want to wade into political battles.
Yeah, it's interesting to me just to kind of pause you there because you said it wasn't a political statement. It was a congrats to an alumnus who, obviously this is somebody, who has been, as you said, a prominent public figure, has had other notable headlines actually in previous confirmation hearings. This is somebody who's been out there, so to say congratulations to somebody, I mean, I think the debate is that really making a political statement? Are you really wading into some sort of political, position by congratulating somebody for getting a job, right? That's sort of the question. Now, talk a little bit about the immediate reaction once that removal was noticed by others.
Well, it prompted a huge backlash from many, I guess you could call them conservative alumni. I'm not sure it's really, we need to call them that, but it's people who are concerned and claim that this is just another capitulation to the left by the school's administration or whoever's running these things. And some of the people that I spoke to, the alumni, they say that this is a lot bigger than just one Facebook post. This is an attitude of kowtowing to liberals that's been going on for decades.
Yeah. Well, and I think this kind of feeds into this other anxiety, I think, at the baseline of this, when you have colleges and universities that really, on the whole, are more progressive, they're not Christian. And then you have these institutions that are set up to be Christian institutions, right? And to foster sort of that community and to offer congratulations once members of that community move on and do something amazing or get a notable job. I think there's some tension there because there's an extra added layer like, oh no, we thought this was a safe space for, pun intended, but a safe space for our community, and now they're removing this post. Let's talk about some of the broader concerns, and then we'll get into this letter that people have signed on to as a result of this. What are some of the bigger concerns about the college's direction? Is it just this instance? Are there other things that have sort of been adding up over the years?
Yeah, I think overall, I think many of the alumni are concerned that Wheaton's just going the way of many other Christian institutions in this country, with liberalism, wokeness seeping in, critical race theory, gender ideology, LGBTQ issues, and language and how we deal with those things. Um, there are some claims that some of their professors just blow off the statement of faith they have to sign, and they just teach totally unbiblical stuff. There was one claim that one professor was referring to God as father and mother. So you have all sort of the same woke battles going on in the larger church. It seemed to be in a microcosm form at Wheaton.
Yeah, well, and I think again, this is a broader issue in many places. But okay, so getting back to this particular instance of the congrats and the removal, there's this letter that people have signed on to as a result of this. What are some of the key parts of that letter that people sign? What is it saying? What is it urging?
Well, it laid out the purpose. Well, first of all, it was written by a small group of concerned alumni. And it basically lays out the purpose and historical mission of the college, and mentioned how for 165 years they've succeeded in producing graduates who live their faith out. They become salt and light in the world, but they're concerned that the school's experiencing mission drift in recent years. They claim, as I said, that professors are not adhering to the statement of faith, and they're failing to maintain a countercultural Christian witness. There's an overemphasis on race, they said, compromise on sexual ethics by adopting LGBT terminology, conservative viewpoints being suppressed, and they think that the consequences of this drift are just, for instance, a decline in missionary sending. That was a major part of their school mission. Decline and is now leading to like a decline in people even applying, because the word has gotten out that, I guess, Wheaton is not what it used to be. And so they're urging for a change in leadership, and they are urging the board of trustees to change course, or else they said that they're going to stop giving financial support. They're going to publicize things that are not very flattering to the school. And yeah, it's just a very sad situation.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And do you think, I mean, based on what you've seen, based on your perspective on this, and of course, you're a journalist, you're covering it, do you think some of the critiques are fair? Do you think some of them are overblown? What is sort of your general sense?
Well, I'm not on campus, so I can only go by what others have said, but the several alumni that I know personally, they feel the same way. Somehow I know several of them. I don't know a ton of people, so it's quite interesting for me personally. But I think the large response that this petition has gotten, as of this morning, it has over 1,700 signatures. I think it reflects that many others agree that Wheaton is not going in the right direction. Um, One alumni I know wrote an article for the Federalist. She and another alumnus talked about the name of the article was "Cowardice in the Face of Vought Attacks" is emblematic of the school's leftward lurch. So I think, based on what I've read and heard, yeah, I think these critiques are probably true.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a good conversation to be having because every institution should not be put on autopilot, right? Theologically, when you're living in such a chaotic culture, you have to have these moments where you stop, you pause, you reassess, and you say, are we living the mission that we said we would live? So whether these things are true or not, having this conversation and assessing it is an important thing. Um, that I think we should be doing at every Christian institution, because when you end up with bad theology and you end up in a place where you're sort of lost in the middle of nowhere, it's because you haven't had those moments. You haven't had these tension points that really force you to reassess. And so I don't know if you want to give any final thoughts there, but to me, these stories are important to cover and they're essential to be talking about.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had a tweet happen to go viral last week mentioning how the school took down a plaque commemorating Jim Elliot, who was murdered by tribesmen in Ecuador, the Alca tribe. And that's a famous story. That's one of the great missionary stories of the last century, because he was murdered, but of course, his wife and the wives of the other missionaries who were killed came down and ended up converting that tribe. So he was a Wheaton alum, and they had a plaque up in the school chapel commemorating him. It was donated by his class in the 50s. And they took it down in 2021 because it used the word savage Indians to describe the people who speared him to death. So I think that was just like a perfect distillation of what's going on at that school. And I think they're dishonoring their alumni with decisions like this. And in my opinion, they're going against the very kingdom service they claim to promote. I mean, Russ Vogt, he's an example of an alum who's living out what they claim to want their students to live out, going out into the world, proclaiming, Christ in the public square. But they can't even manage to offer prayer for him. That's controversial.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the piece of this that I think is so strange. I mean, every college would love to have their alum in positions like this, right? And it would make you wonder if the roles were reversed, would this even be an issue if this were, Democratic administration, and maybe it would be. I don't know, but I think again, this is a simple congrats. You're not saying I agree with everything this man is going to tout or do or say, and it's not them saying they agreed with an administration or not. So at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. Jon, as always, appreciate your time and analysis.
Sure. Thanks, Billy.
Everyone else, make sure you head on over to the Christian Post and come back next week for another episode of The Inside Story. We'll see you then.